Yuck. Smelly kipper. I don't know how Henry copes.
Oh, hello there. It's James, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And you're Sterling, right?
Correct.
Huh? Who's that engine?
I don't know, actually. I've never seen an engine quite like him before. He isn't one of ours. He was found derailed in the middle of the main line. I wonder where he came from.
I thought my bright red paint makes me stand out.
All of his tests are successful, sir. He's ready. Good. Let's put him on the main line. Look! Good morning, Edward. Oh. Hello, Boko. Where were you last night? Oh, I had to stay at Barrow after taking the midnight goods train. It was late, so my driver stayed in a hotel, while I slept in the sheds of the Inverness Railway. Are you okay, Edward? You look a bit tense. Oh, yes, I'm fine, Boko. I've just been busy lately and thinking about all that's happened this year so far. My close call, Henry's accident on that old branch, and Thomas's encounter with a ghost. Yes, this has been a very eventful start to the year. Anyway, I must be off. I've got to take a goods train from Knapford. Goodbye. Goodbye, Boko. Who was that engine? One day, a week after Thomas's encounter with a ghost, Gordon, Henry, and Edward were at the station waiting to leave with their trains.
Being a little tight agent, I would assume Thomas was just making things up to scare us. But over these last few days, when I passed him at the junction, he always looks put out, so to speak.
Do you think it's possible that there is something out there watching us? Because often I get this feeling that someone is watching me, even though there's nothing there.
Perhaps, but we shouldn't jump to conclusions without evidence, Henry. What are your thoughts on this, Edward?
Oh, sorry, Gordon. I was deep in thought. Gordon and Henry looked at each other, surprised. You were saying, Gordon?
I was talking about Thomas's apparent encounter with a ghost at the scrapyard.
Oh, yes, I heard about that. Since we have very little evidence on the matter, I suggest we shouldn't worry about this and carry on with our work until we have more answers.
Indeed.
Edward, are you alright? You look a bit stressed. Before Edward could say anything, the guard of his train blew his whistle. Oh, I have to go now. Goodbye, Henry. Goodbye, Gordon. I'll talk to you two later. Duck, who was nearby, pulled up alongside Gordon and Henry.
Well, that's a bit strange.
Strange is the word, Duck. It is certainly not like Edward to be deep in thought during conversations.
Well, this isn't the first time I've seen Edward acting unusual.
What do you mean, Henry?
A few weeks ago, me and Edward were sleeping at Willsworth the night after my accident on the old branch line. I awoke in the middle of the night to find Edward awake and breathing heavily. He told me he had a bad dream, but he didn't say what it was. Then he just went back to sleep. Now, Gordon was even more worried.
You two have known Edward longer than I have. Has he ever acted this way before?
I don't think so, Duck, but I'm not sure.
Although he would often tease Edward about his age and strength compared to his own, he had always had a great respect for the Blue Engine, and seeing him acting this way made Gordon grow concerned for his old friend. Before reaching Barrow, the express stops at Croven's Gate to connect with the first train of the Scarlowy Railway. Sir Handel was waiting with his coaches when Gordon steamed in. "Hello, Gordon. You look a bit put out."
You can say that again, Sir Handel.
"I don't see why you are. Your paint is spotless, you're pulling nice-looking bogey coaches. What could be wrong?" Gordon told Sir Handel about Edward and what happened at Knapford. Interesting. I don't often see or talk to Edward. Not like I did back in the day."
What do you mean, back in the day?
"Oh, of course. I never told you. Me and Edward are actually old friends. I used to work on an old narrow gauge railway in Barrow near the... what's it called? The Ferney Railway or the Ferney...
The Furnace Railway?
That's it, yes. The line was near the Furness Railway, and we would often trade goods and passengers. A few years after Edward went to Sodor, I was bought by the Mid-Sodor Railway after my old railway closed due to a accident. But I don't really like talking about it. As Gordon departed, he thought hard about what Sir Handel had said. It brought up the possibility that whatever was wrong with Edward could relate to something that happened to him on the Furness Railway. However, it is also possible that it is something personal that Edward may not like talking about. Gordon thought it disrespectful to get involved in something he had nothing to do with. Over the next few days, Gordon was sometimes seen pulling goods trains, as Donald and Douglas were busy restoring a branch line on the western part of the island. Usually, Gordon would hate such work, but this time, he was more concerned about Edward than his own image. It was now the 31st of January, and Gordon was being prepared for the morning express. He told Henry what Sir Handel had said to him a few days ago. The two engines then decided to do something they should have done from the start. Talk to Edward and find out what's going on. Edward sat quietly at the station with his branch line train. Gordon and Henry backed down onto their trains, one on each side. "Edward, me and Gordon have noticed that over these last few days you have been acting strange, and we want to know if something is wrong." "Alright, Henry. You and Gordon deserve an explanation. Recently I have had strange dreams, and in them I keep seeing this purple engine, as well as other things I can't explain. Also, earlier this month, when I took that goods train to Barrow, I saw the ghost of an engine called Proteus, an old friend who had a tragic accident many years ago."
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Edward.
So am I. Gordon also told me you and Sir Handel are old friends. How did you know that?
Sir Handel told me when I spoke of your strange behavior.
Oh, I see. Gordon told Sir Handel when he arrived at the works station later that morning. After hearing this, Sir Handel asked Gordon to do something for him. Gordon was puzzled by the request, but agreed to help. Sir Handel wants to meet me at the old sidings at Crovens Gate this evening? Whatever for?
How should I know? You're his old friend. You tell me.
What concerns me is getting there. I've got my evening passenger train, and when I finish the journey it will be very late. There was a long silence. At last, Gordon spoke.
If you pretended to be ill, you couldn't pull your evening train, could you?
Oh, how bloody original. Gordon, the last time you said that it was to Sir Handel, and yes, it did work, but it also resulted in Peter Sam having an accident.
Well, that's different. That was because Sir Handel was a lazy... Besides, this is a completely different situation.
I don't approve of telling lies, but in this case, I'll have to make an exception. Boko, could you take my evening train for me, since you're the only other engine allowed on the branch line? I could, but I've got an evening goods train that leaves at 7 o'clock, so I wouldn't be back in time for that. I've got no evening trains tonight, so I could take your goods. Oh, really? Oh, that's good. Thank you, Henry. Excellent. That's settled then. That evening at 6 o'clock, the Fat Controller was in his house. He was eating hot buttered toast for tea. The butler came in. Excuse me, sir, you are wanted on the telephone. Oh, bother that telephone. And it's always when I'm eating too. Yes, hello? Oh, I see. Poor Edward. Boko could, but he has a goods train to take later this evening. Oh, of course. That's a perfect idea. Boko can take Edward's passenger train, and Henry can take Boko's goods. Make the arrangements, please. Thank you. Goodbye. Right, back to my... excuse me, my dear. What? I'm very busy right now. Oh, really? Ah, excellent. Thanks for letting me know. Goodbye. That was the manager at Crovens Gate Works. The miniature engines have arrived. Their overhauls begin tomorrow. A little later, Gordon and Boko sat at the station with their trains. As always, the branch line train would leave 5 minutes after the express. The passengers boarded the coaches, the porter closed the doors, and the guard blew his whistle. Meanwhile, Edward sat at Wellsworth, waiting for Gordon to pass. It was a cold night, but Edward and his crew didn't mind, as they had a nice glowing fire to keep them warm. Soon they heard a familiar whistle, and watched as Gordon thundered by with the express. That's our cue, Edward. Come on, let's go. Edward took a deep breath and left the sheds onto the main line, towards Crovens Gate. A little later, Boko arrived at Wellsworth with his own train. As the passengers embarked and disembarked, he looked out into the distance. I hope Edward learns what he wants to know. At last, we're here. Come on, Charlie, let's go to the sidings. Sir Handel. Hello, Edward. I see you found the meeting place. It's been a while since I've been around here. In fact, I don't think we've had a proper conversation since the days of the Furness Railway. Indeed. Anyway, Gordon informs me that you have been having strange dreams lately. Something about a purple engine? Yes, that's correct. Do you know who this engine is? Yes, I certainly do. Edward, this may be a shock to you, but that purple engine is you. What? But how is that possible? I don't remember, and there is a reason behind that, but please let me explain. But before I do so, do you believe in prophecies? I don't know. I've never really thought about that. Why? Well, during the 19th century, around the time railways were first created, there was a prophecy that there would be a steam engine painted purple and would be much stronger and more powerful than the other engines at the time. However, this prophecy was denied, as I assume in those days it would be impossible to build such an engine. Then, in the early 1890s, a gentleman discovered and learnt this prophecy. You will know him, as he is your designer, William Frank Pettigrew. Unlike most people, Pettigrew used the prophecy as a starter for the creation of an engine he had wanted to build for some time. It was around this time that I was built and arrived on the Barrow Light Railway. Pettigrew would sometimes visit the line, as he was fond of narrow gauge railways, and me, him and Proteus were good friends. It was because of Pettigrew I know most of the things I'm telling you now. Anyway, after making blueprints and a lot of hard work, you were completed in early March of 1896. I remember meeting you for the first time at the station. We were both very young at the time, and soon became good friends. As Pettigrew hoped for, you were powerful and could handle trains that most engines struggled with. Sadly, however, you didn't last as long as we thought you would. In the June of 1896, a goods train was heading towards Barrow. Amongst its trucks was a fuel tanker. As the train approached a level crossing, the engine burst a cylinder and stopped with the tanker on the crossing. Unfortunately, you were on the other line with a passenger train. I guess you saw what was ahead. There was nothing you could do. You were severely damaged from the crash, but were still repairable. However, many people wanted you scrapped, as they saw you a threat to the railway. So, Pettigrew said publicly that you would be scrapped, but in reality, you were repaired, had a slight rebuild, and was given a different colour. Your memories of the incident were also lost, and that's probably why you can't remember it. You changed from being a purple engine to the prototype of the Furness Railway largest seagull. The only ones to know of this is the IFR itself, me, and Proteus, as no one, not even you, must know that the purple engine is still alive. But after knowing you've been having dreams of your true origins, I realized you needed to know the truth. Are you feeling better, Edward? Actually, yes. I think now that I know everything, I feel much better now. Thank you, Sir Handel. Thank you for telling me everything. I feel much more happy now that I have the full picture. I'm glad I could help, Edward. Now, you better get back to the sheds, as it's very late. So should you, by the sounds of it. Good night, Sir Handel, and thank you again. Good night, old friend. As Edward set off for home, he noticed two familiar engines in the sidings outside the station. Gordon? Henry? Don't tell me you were waiting here all this time for me.
Well, actually, Henry was here on his own as I was coming back from Barrow Light Engine, so I decided to wait here with him until you came back.
Are you alright, Edward? Yes, Henry. I'm fine, thank you. More than fine, to be honest.
I must say you look more cheerful than you did before. What did you learn?
I'll explain on the way back. Come on. The following morning, the engines went about their work. The only other engines who knew of the events of last night were Boko, as he was just as worried about Edward as Gordon and Henry were, and Thomas, as he had had an encounter with Proteus. And it was only right that he knew everything. After that, Edward thought it wise that no one else was told. As Sir Handel had said, no one must know that the purple engine is still alive.
Boko, did I see you pulling Edward's evening train the other night?
Yes, Edward had been working hard, so I offered to take his evening branch line train, while he had a well-deserved rest.
Oh, well that's nice of you.
Oh, well, thank you. You know something, Dougie? What's that, Donald? Full of diesel. Young Boko needs such a bad sort of engine. Aye, Donald. Aye, quite ugly. Hello, Gordon. Fancy seeing you pulling a stopping train. Have you finally decided to not be lazy and do other jobs that aren't express related?
It's called being helpful, little Thomas. You should try it sometime instead of crashing into station masters' houses in an attempt to have breakfast.
Oh, shut up.
Anyway, the Fat Controller decided to give me a rest from the express, but allowed me to do smaller duties like stopping trains. Being an express engine is a tiring job, you know.
But if you're doing this, then who's pulling the express?
Make way for an important engine.
Well, that answers that question. You know, there's been something on my mind lately, and it's making me rather uneasy.
What might that be?
Well, I don't understand why Proteus is on Sodor. I mean, Edward said that his railway is in Barrow, and that his accident happened there. He would have no motives or reasons to come here. So why is he here?
I don't know, Thomas. I've been thinking about that too. I even asked Edward, but even he doesn't know anything. What is it, Thomas?
I don't know. It's probably nothing, but with all that's been happening this year so far, I can't help but feel nervous, but I don't know why.
Well, little Thomas, after all that's happening, after everything we've learned, it's all we can feel right now.
That evening, the 3 railway engines sat on the quay at Knapford Harbour, talking about the last few eventful days. Gordon, Henry, I wanted to thank you two for looking out for me and understanding what I was going through. Well, you've helped me and Gordon when we were going through difficult situations. It was only right that we returned the favour.
We've known each other for many years, and although we don't always agree with everything, we should always look out for each other. Do you see what I mean, my dear Edward?
Yes, Gordon, I certainly do. The 3 railway engines, where it all began.